believe in my ability and I believe that I'm talented and all those things. But really, it's people and resources and community and the things I've been able to have around me that have been able to help me to propel into those things that I'm able to now do. I don't think I knew I was confident. I definitely probably wouldn't have described myself as such. I was on like a youth council from when I was like 8. The special advisor to the Prime Minister at the time found me on LinkedIn. I don't know how, why, what. The security, the uncle that was at the place, that was like my code D. And because he was my code D, literally, he would let me into any department I wanted. I'm an intern, I'm not supposed to be anywhere, but I think they took me as just any 21-year-old, but not realising the network I had built outside of work. I remember doing an interview with Slick Rick, who's obviously like a legend in hip hop, sending it round and then being like, why are you interviewing Slick Rick? And I'm like, because guys, I told you I work with this magazine and we interview really cool people. But when I think about where the industry is and where platforms are right today, it constantly makes me think, wow, had I just continued, who would have known? I feel like I was ahead of my time. We've lost pitches that we've put our heart and soul into. We've lost money. I've taken pay cuts. And no one really sees that part of the business or the journey.
I'm going to call it the courage to say no and walk away from something that most people have said yes to. Where did that come from and what was that journey for you? Welcome to another episode of Everyday Leadership, and you guys know me already. Normally, I don't tend to do bios, but today my guest bio is one that is long. She's currently the co-founder and head of talent at ElephantGroup, which is a creative ad agency addressing the industry's elephant in the room, hence the name. She has worked with global brands such as Uber, Converse, Chivas, Disney, and so much more. Outside of that, she's a fellow of the Royal Art Society. She's been a former government advisor. She's been Forbes 30 under 30, formerly on GWAP. She has lectured at Kingston. And there's so much more of what she has done that we're definitely going to get into in today's episode. That's why I was like, you don't know. I don't know how she managed to hold that down, but hopefully she can share some gems in today's episode. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about Shanice Mears. How are you doing, Shani?
I'm good, thank you. Loads happening. Just moved house, new mom, work. But I'm good, thank you. Thank you for asking.
In fact, let me delve into that for a minute. When you say there's loads happening currently in your life, for someone who has juggled so much, it seems, how do you handle so much stuff?
How do I handle so much stuff? That is a really good question. I don't know, but it's weird because I was saying this to a friend yesterday that it feels unnatural when I'm not doing so much stuff. So I feel like it's kind of just innate where I feel like I have to have lots happening in order to sort of feel productive, to feel like I'm moving. And I've got this thing about moving forward really fast. So in my sort of mind, I'm just like, anything I need to do, I just need to do it. It just needs to get done. And then if it doesn't work or if I do it wrong or whatever, okay, that's good. At least I've done it quickly and I can do it again. I don't really like slow paced things. So when I say loads of things happening, I mean I'm doing quite a bit at the moment. So, and that's in both my sort of personal life in terms of obviously being a new mom, etc. And then obviously also in work as well.
First, then, let me take you back. Let's take the people back to the start. Not the start. A younger version of you. I'm curious, what were you like when you were between 0 to 10, those first 10 years of your life?
0 to 10. I think my mum would describe me as fast. Yeah, she probably would describe me as such. And fast in the sense whereas in way ahead of my years in terms of wanting to be in everything with I have an older sister who's quite a bit older than me. So she's probably like 14 years older than me. And everything she was doing, I wanted to do. Bearing in mind, I'm like 6 and she's at this point like 21. So everything she was doing, I thought I could do too as a 6-year-old, which obviously I could not. But I think those are like my earliest memories, just seeing my sister do lots of cool stuff and wanting to be involved, putting on my mom's shoes, having lots of older friends. All my friends that I grew up with are about 4 or 5 years older than me. So I didn't really actually make friends like my age until like year 4 or 5. I think so. I think being the youngest of 4 and having older siblings, everything they'd done, everything that they were into, I was influenced by that. So I think it was kind of just natural for me personally to just then have older friends as well, because I aligned to what they were doing, because my siblings were and they were the closest thing to me at that. So it kind of just felt like normal. I didn't know it wasn't that normal until I got to like secondary school and all my friends were in year 10 and I was in year 7. And everyone was just like, why do you know all the year 10s? And I was just like, well, my brother's friends. And obviously I knew all my brother's friends because he'd been in the school already. And then I was like, okay, maybe it's not normal. but it genuinely was like, it was just so normal for me. Yeah, it was just so normal for me.
But you always like feel a lot of like confidence from those ages then, if you already hang around older people.
Maybe it was confidence. I think it was unintentional though, or subconscious. Is it subconscious? Yeah, subconscious, because I don't think I knew I was confident. Or I definitely probably wouldn't have described myself as such. But I probably did have an underlying confidence. And I was also dancing. And I feel like as a dancer, you kind of have to have this kind of performance aura about you anyway. And because I've been dancing since I was about 6, I think for me, naturally, I was a performer anyway. And I just had that in me. And I did start doing things from quite young. So whether it be, no, actually dancing, I actually started quite late because people start from about 3. But if I'm thinking about like just the things that I was into and the things I was getting involved with at my age, now looking back, I actually was quite young. So like I was on like a youth council from when I was like 8. And I was like, I remember going to it was called the YPP, Young People's Parliament. And I was like 8, 9. And now I'm thinking maybe all of those things have contributed to who I am today. Or definitely, in fact. But yeah, and it was basically everyone who was a part of their school council, they would pick a few individuals who they highlighted, and then you'd go to the Young People's Parliament and then you'd discuss wider issues. So like wider societal and political issues that happen like to like young people. And I remember that happening and doing it and being picked for it and doing it like 3, 4 years running. And I thought to myself, the other day, actually, I was thinking maybe that wasn't that normal, but at the time it was for me. Yeah, and I think all those things might have contributed to that confidence.
When you were young, I don't know what it was like in your environment, but typically speaking, I know a lot of people talk about how they find it hard to have a voice. You're young, no one really wants to listen to you. It sounds like in your case, you had a voice. Who was it, or were there people around you who helped you to be able to find your voice, to be able to nurture your voice, and ultimately own your voice in the way that you did?
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. And I think I was just, again, fortunate to have certain influences around me that really encouraged me to do those things. So, like examples of the Young People's Parliament was like in school, and I had an incredible champion in school. I had multiple, but one in particular, her name was Miss White, and she would always she was the one that would take us. I remember doing netball, and she really wanted me to be on the team, so she'd drop me home. She told my mom, like, I'll take her home, like, it's okay. And I think because those people saw something in me and pushed me, that sense of being empowered from young, same when I started youth club when I wasn't supposed to. So you're supposed to start from 11, and I started from 9, and that was because my aunt was basically head of youth engagement, and she said, "Nah, I really think that she should be in the youth club," and my mom allowed me to go. But then when I started again, I made lots of friends, and then I started teaching the dance class, and I was like 12. So I had been in the youth club for a while, and then joined another board, and again, that was for YOF, which at the time was the Youth Opportunity Fund, which was like for funding for young people that they could apply for. And I think getting involved in all those things has sort of allowed me to sort of tap into that sense of like, oh, these are the things that people want. These are the things that people are asking for. These are the things that are happening in my area. These are the things that my friends are going through. These are things that I see happening, because even though all those things are happening, I was still very privy to like the outside world in terms of like what was happening amongst the youth. And I grew up in a working class home, council estate. So I saw a lot of like gun, knife crime, all of that stuff. So I think being privy to all of that as well and seeing it firsthand, also thought, surely there's got to be a better way to discuss these things, or like, raise these things in different spaces so that other people are aware that they're happening. Because 9 times out of 10, when you do go into spaces like, again, my example of the Young People's Parliament, and you're coming with the issues that you're seeing, you think that everyone's seeing them because that's your world. But then actually, when you go there and you meet all the other kids, some of them have never experienced the idea of knife crime or gun, like they don't even know that that's happening. So I think for me, it was just more about raising it and seeing what would then come of that. And that still kind of happens to this day, to be honest. But yeah, like I think I was just privy, and I had the opportunity to talk about it, so I did.
When you think about then you fast forward and growing up, being part of those councils, having a voice, and then going on into what you stepped into. Sounds like, what would you describe as, or what would you say has been your main passion or driver when you think about your trajectory so far?
My main passion or driver? That's a really good question. If I'm being completely honest, I just think that I'm somebody, like, by nature, who is a giver, and being a giver, I'm also quite empathetic. And with that empathy comes a need or a want to do more. And I think for me, that is what drives me most of the time. And the older I get, a really good example, for example, and this is kind of like a much more recent thought of mine, but I've just had a baby, and within the first 10 months of his life, I've been able to return to work, buy a house, and not have to pay for childcare. And I think it, like, on a day-to-day, someone be like, oh my gosh, well done, whatever. But I'm like, actually, that's not really just because of me. That's because of like the privilege I have around me in terms of like the support. And then when I step into certain worlds, there's like, that's not like the norm for like the average young mom having a baby right now. So for me, I'm like, well, I can't just sit in this privilege or sit in this like, well, they're like, oh my gosh, it's like, how can I do more? So I've recently started working with a charity where it's about helping like more of the community and like young families, low income people, etc. And I think that just comes from me wanting to just do more, because recognizing that I've had the support and not everybody does. So a lot of the time, people fulfill their potential, or fulfilled, like, I think fulfill their potential with the resources that they have around them and the empowerment that they have around them that allows them to tap into that. And I think that over time, although absolutely my ability, and I believe in my ability, and I believe that I'm talented and all those things, but really it's people and resources and community and the things I've been able to have around me that have been able to help me to propel into those things that I'm able to now do. So I think like all those things is what drives me to then want to do more, because I just feel like nobody got here alone. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like it's just important to me to just help people.
It's some people then might be like Shani, you just said yourself at the start, there's a lot's going on. You just had a baby. Why are you taking on something else? Why are you just resting up yourself and you know stuff? Like fixing up for your family. Like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah,
Like,
no.
that's the reaction that generally people will have.
Yeah, no, I know. And I still get that reaction, but honestly, but you know, though, like I'm not. He's not getting any less of me, so it's like I'm okay with that. Like my setup, everyone who's like, you know, who that sort of knows me knows my setup, but it's all right because I make time and prioritize time, in and around him and the things that I'm doing. And I am someone, I will never do more than I cannot do. So if I can't commit to something, I will 100% say no. I'm not one of them sort of people who overcommits themselves. I just do what I think I can do. So, for example, with this charity, I know that I can do certain things for them and support them. For the things that I cannot do, I say I can't do this bit, but I can do that. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's important to also recognize your almost like your limit of what you can give.
So how did you go from, let's call it dancing, like all of that, and rising all the way throughout to then going to like producer marketing?
It's honestly, you know what? It's a really weird transition, but I was never really just a dancer. So even though I was dancing, and dancing was 100% at the forefront of what I wanted to do, like that's what I've done throughout my studies. That's what I've done up to university. Even when I came out of university, like I was dancing, that was it. But amongst dancing, I was also like, I was getting involved in like projects. I was putting on workshops for young people. As soon as I graduated, I became a teacher, like a supply teacher, and I was teaching. So I was doing lots of different things, and like I said, I was from inception, like at early years, I was into lots of different things like social politics, etc. So I think when I went to university, and I was like introduced to a world of creativity. I knew that dancing exists for me, and I knew that performing arts exists for me. But then I started to meet friends who were like into production and fashion, and like they were into like skateboarding, and they were just doing cool stuff. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe this is the world I want to be in. And I think with that came this sense of curiosity to do more, want to know more, understand more. So then I was introduced to a youth marketing agency in London, and I sort of became the plug between the London agency and like the sort of Midlands, like Coventry, Birmingham. I was doing like little focus groups with my uni friends, like for them and stuff. And then I realized like, wait, this is a whole world. Like this is a thing. Like people do this. Like people want our opinion. Like this, that that's how they inform their marketing. Like that's what brands do. And obviously, again, being introduced to that. And I think again, like by default, I was into fashion, music, culture. I had opinions on things that I saw. And then when I got introduced to this agency, they were like, you should consider being a marketeer. They were like, you should consider being a marketeer. And I was just like, I don't know what that is, but okay. And they had this internship and they were like, apply. Like they really like highly recommended. Once again, people around me pushing me to do something like, and I was just like, okay, I'll apply. Finished uni anyway, we'll see. And then I got it. I literally had to move to London within like 6 weeks. So I think it was just that. It was more just a case of like things that I was naturally into kind of like got suggested to me, like you could probably apply those things to this. Didn't know it was going to work out. Probably did, like, you know what I mean? It was just like, okay, let me just do it. I'm 21, I just finished. And I knew I didn't want to be in Birmingham. The goal was always going to be London, even if it was just dancing, like the goal was always going to be London anyway. And when I got the internship, again, taking on more things, but I became also an ambassador for Girls Talk London at the time. Now it's called Girls Talk Corp. And then I was also working with GWAP because I saw GWAP magazine and I connected with the founder, well, one of the founders, Ibrahim, on Twitter. And I was just telling him how much I just love GWAP. And if he needs anything, I'll do it. Like, yeah, this is basically. And I was like, I'm moving to London, so even better. Like, and again, that's it. I was doing my internship. I was an ambassador for Girls Talk. I was helping with GWAP. And then eventually joined GWAP. Like, so it all just became this sort of thing. And then, yeah. And then I was just naturally just meeting lots of different people, a lot of people who are like sort of really big now at the time, which was like 8-9 years ago, but they were also just doing their thing and we were all just connecting, etc. And I was always at an event. I was writing as well at the time. So I'm the kind of person as well, like I just try any and everything if I enjoy it, I'll try it. And I really enjoyed writing. I did English at A-level. My dissertation was quite poetic. My choreography, when I was choreographing, was always quite poetic, always had some form of like monologue. And I've always enjoyed writing. So I started writing for GWAP and I started writing for Afropunk. And then naturally I just started to build my network, like more and more.
In fact, that's what I want to ask you about. When you say naturally, because when I think about you moving from Birmingham to London, reaching out to go out, I'm sure they will have got Ibrahim and the crew have got like reach outs. So there's been something about you and the way that you showed up, or even the way that you've built your network since then, and even in that couple of years, a period of time. What is it? If someone's listening to you, I was like, all right, Shanice, I'm hearing you right now, but I want to also build my network. I want to get to know people. I want to step into certain industries. What would you recommend? What advice would you give people the best way to do outreach and to connect with people authentically?
I think first thing that comes to mind is intentionality. Like, what is the intention behind you reaching out? Because if it's just for you, then it won't work. There has to be an exchange and a value exchange. I knew when I moved to London, I needed to meet people. I needed to upskill. I needed to exercise my creativity. I needed to connect with people that like were aligned to me. Like I knew that I needed to do all those things, but I knew that those things weren't just going to come to me. So instead, I used the fact that I was a writer, ex-dancer, and had like a really great network. I was always willing to share it. I knew a lot of things in terms of like researching and understanding like culture and stuff. I was always willing to like write about it, understand it. And I think those things align to, let's use GWAP as an example. They were at the early inception, they needed writers, I'd write for free. They were at an early inception, they needed people to be able to go out and come back and inform them what's happening. I'll do that for free. Because by default, that meant I was then building my network. I was exercising my creativity. And there was a really good value exchange there because we were both getting what we needed. And I think if I was going to talk to any person that was going to go out there and understand what it is that you need, but also understand what it is that you can give to that person, and make sure it's as intentional as possible. Because I think if you're being intentional about it, that means that you're serious about it and you actually want to do it. So for me, I wasn't doing that with every magazine that was out there, and I wasn't also aiming so high where I knew that I'd get ignored, because that didn't make any sense. Dazed, for example, I read Dazed, but they were never going to take on my writing because I'm not a journalist. I've had no training. So I was shooting realistically. Whereas now I could probably go to Dazed and be like, oh, I've got this really great story, etc. But at the time, that I knew that wasn't realistic. So I think also like being realistic about what it is that you want to do, what it is you want to build, understand how you can do that. And also not being afraid to take a different route. I think often people think, like, for example, a good example is like, oh, you want to get a contact. You think you've got to get the contact to the highest person in the build, like in the business. But actually, you might just need to connect with the junior manager or the mid-level manager, because you never know, that mid-level manager might have a really good relationship with that high person, and there you're in, rather than going straight to that person, because if you go straight to that person, they might just miss it. But by building a relationship with that person here and that person here, you've got better value and you've got two more people in your network rather than just the one. And I think you can nurture it differently as well. So I think all those things are really important, and I value everybody. So I remember when I started my internship, and the security, the uncle that was at the place, that was like my cold D. And because he was my cold D, literally he would let me into any department I wanted. He'd be like, go. Like, and I'm an intern, I'm not supposed to be anyway, but me and him, we really gelled, and like, I'd always ask him if he's okay, if he needed anything on break. Like, we just built a really cool relationship. And I felt, and again, that's a really small example, but it does count for something, because that enabled me to get access to places that I probably shouldn't have had access to, just by being nice and recognizing that, that's somebody in the building. So I think it's also about that as well, like not being afraid to take routes that you probably think you have to take, but just thinking differently outside of the route you think you have to take it. Yeah, essentially.
That sounds
Yeah.
like you're someone who I would say you value everyone that you come across. So it's
Yes.
not just about the position, because I think a lot of times people can be like, I want to get to that person, that position. But you being able to look at, like you said, your Cody security guy, but like that's a human. We can vibe, we can get along, and learning to do that. I think that resonates with people so much, because they will show up for you in ways you never expect. And opportunities will come out places you never expect, because it's not about the positioning. So that seeing the human, I think, is something that I see missing a lot sometimes, that I think you just described really, really well.
100%. Like, I'll give you an example today. I mean, I'm not going to mention it because I haven't actually done it, but I got an email yesterday saying that someone, who I don't know who this person is, someone put me forward for something. It's one of the most elite marketing school scholarships in the world, and they want me to come and apply, but you have to be nominated. So I'm like, who put me forward for this? I didn't even know this existed. But just even that, like, it's so flattering, because it's like, wow, like, there's people out there putting me forward for things that, like, the way how they describe it is for the best marketeers in the world. So I'm like, that is insane, that someone looks at me and thinks, wow, she deserves that, or she deserves to be a part of something like this, or the alum for something like this. And I still don't know who that person is, but I'm guessing it's because I've done something nice for them. I'm guessing, but honestly, that's just so normal for me. It's not something I probably, I don't even know. But again, it's a really good example, because it just comes back around in different ways in which you might not expect.
Speaking of marketing, you turned down an offer from CEO at Iris at that point in time. And when I read that, I was like, wait a minute, you got a good offer. And you said no. I was like, why? Like, what was it around, I'm going to call it the courage to say no and walk away for something that most people have said yes to? Where did that come from, and what was that journey for you?
Mm. It's funny, because you say courage, and I honestly didn't think it was a case of courage for me at the time. I just didn't I don't think I can give anyone my best self if I'm not happy. It's just not happy or stressed. Like not happy or stressed. I can't do it. Like I've tried, doesn't work. And if I had taken that job, they wouldn't have got the best me. And I think I would be doing them a disservice and myself. But again, once again, lucky enough to have built a very, very good relationship with Dan, who was CEO at the time, where he felt like, well, you don't take it. Why not? Like, instead of being like, oh gosh, okay, so she's not taking it, it's like he's more curious as to why, because of course there's a reason behind it. And it was more just like, I just, I've been here almost a year and I just don't think it's for me. Like, I feel like I genuinely felt like at the time, shout out to Iris as well, no disrespect to them, but they weren't using me. They weren't using me to their advantage. And I felt like I was doing more work outside of work than I was in my 9 to 5. And I weren't really with that, because I was thinking, I'm supposed to be learning here, developing. I'm supposed to be being pushed. I'm like, this is the workplace. That's what they say happens. But I'm not doing it. I find myself pushing myself. I find myself trying to insert myself into things. And I didn't want to work in a place like that. And I think that, again, no disrespect to them, I think it's just the nature of the industry. I'm an intern, I'm 21, what does she know? Like, we can't really put her on that project, XYZ. But I think they took me. And again, this is not even me like to my own horn or anything like that. But I think they took me as just she's just any 21-year-old, like, but not realizing like the network I had built outside of work. And the thing, like, I remember doing an interview with Slick Rick, who's obviously like a legend in hip hop, and sending it round and then being like, why are you interviewing Slick Rick? And I'm like, because guys, I told you I work with this magazine and we interview really cool people. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you guys, like, they do some really cool stuff. Like, and I was really trying to bring all the cool stuff that was happening into that space. But yeah, I don't think they were ready at the time to just take it in. But Dan was. He saw it, loved it, knew it, and he was just like, all right, cool. Like, we've got to create our own lane for this, because, yeah, essentially. And that's what made me turn it down. And I just thought maybe I should work in music. Maybe it's just not, maybe marketing just wasn't my vibe. That's what I thought at the time. When it wasn't going so well, I just thought, oh, maybe I should be in music. Maybe it's not even here. Maybe it's just not the right space.
And that's why I say it's courage. And it's courage because at a very young age, you knew who you were. You knew what you could offer. You knew what you were doing outside. And there's so many times where people look at their age and their environment and be like, oh, maybe it's because I'm too young, I'm too naive, I'm just dreaming too big or whatever it is. And therefore they'll just say yes to things and then end up being unhappy. Whereas you knew yourself and you're like, I know this ain't it. Like, I know I can do more, I can bring more, I'm ready to do more outside of here. So I have to back myself. And to back yourself is a courageous act. It's not something that a lot of people do naturally, especially at a young age.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I think it's maybe I didn't feel very courageous at the time, but I suppose looking back, yeah. And I think even to this day, when we still tell that story, or if I tell that story, people are like, what? Like, people are still like, what? Why would he do that? So I do kind of get it, and I do get it in any way or the form. So, but yeah, I think, yeah, and also as well, like, I'm a faithful babe. Like, I believe in Jesus Christ, so I feel like anything that comes my way, like, it's enough for me to handle. And I think at the time I knew that it wasn't right.
How did you go from there, brand listening, to the creation of Elephant Room and going on to work with amazing brands that your company has done so far?
Well, it wasn't a smooth transition in terms of, like, it was definitely like, for the first year, there was like a lot of sort of meetings, developing what does it look like. And I'm head of talent, so my job was really to think about what is our talent DNA, What does it stand for? What does it look like? What do we need to do differently? What's happening in the industry? And I was doing all sorts of things like at the early years of our like inception. So putting on like talent days, collaborations, doing like events, and just talking to talent in terms of like, when I say talent as well, I'm talking DJs, artists, music artists, photographers, videographers, editors, producers. Like I was speaking to literally everybody and just thinking about what it is, what is it that you guys want, need, what don't you know? And then I felt for a long time, I still kind of feel like it sometimes, but not so much anymore. But for a long time, I felt like I was living in this dual world where I was in marketing, and I met marketing creatives, art directors, copywriters, motion designers, art workers. And then I was in this other world where I would go to parties and I'd meet DJs, promoters, photographers, makeup artists, singers. And I just couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I didn't fully understand how to sort of bring those two worlds together, which then made me sort of kind of enter two worlds as well. So I was a part of a group called She Said So, which is about women in music and media. I became a community manager, again, another thing, on volunteer basis. And then I was a part of this, but then it allowed me to sort of combine those worlds. So I was hosting some events at like Mixcloud. I'd done some stuff at Boiler Room, like etc. And I was trying to just, again, build up. I've created something called Girls Let's Talk. Again, bringing that into the sort of atmosphere. Then Girls Let's Talk with the man dem. I've invited the guys to come and talk. And it kind of then led me to thinking, okay, I know what we need as a DNA. I know what we need. We need a community that exists for everybody, where we can all exchange resources, events, skill swap. And that community exists, but it needs to also be a safe space. So that needs to be a protected community. So that's an invite only or recommendation, etc. And then we need something that can allow people to sort of step up. So have access to people that they probably would never have access to, or they need to learn the tricks of the trade. Like, what is that? And I suppose off the back of that, I created 1 month mentors, which is our personal professional development bespoke program, and that we do around the calendar year, 3 times a year. And the guest list, which is a community I created, which is all about skill swapping, sharing, engaging, and it's exclusively inclusive.
When I hear you talk about the things that you've gone on to create, and then I think about the younger version of you, I can see the thread all the way throughout around someone who was an advocate for other people, and you were hearing what was being said as a young ambassador and pouring that out. And then you got onto the digital world, or before the digital world, where you're the bridge, where you're running focus groups and amplifying that. This looks very, very different, but that's the same thing you're doing when you were younger. And all the way throughout your career sounds like that consistency of hearing and seeing things and being the, for one of the plug to be like, I can see this here, I can see this here. Let me bring that together and create a community around. That's like a common, a consistent thread all the way throughout everything that you've done. But it's always been in service of others consistently all the way throughout.
Yeah, I think so. You are right. I think those are definitely like the common threads throughout. And then that just then led to, again, like I said, I can't take all the credit because Dan, who is also the co-founder of the Elephant Room, he looks a lot different to me, a lot older than me. He was obviously the CEO for a long time. He opened up a lot of agencies around the world. So his business acumen and essentially his knowledge was something that he shared with me. And I sort of took from, tailored, like, do you know what I mean? And we work really well. We have a very honest relationship as well. And I think he's poured his heart and soul into building the Elephant Room as well as me. But I think that has also been able to sort of, our partnership and the way in which we work and the way in which we've built our team has also contributed a lot to then the brands that we work with and how we work and what we do. Like, each of us are passionate about different things. Each of us lead on different things. And essentially, I think that a big part of the reason why I'm also able to do these things is because I've been empowered to do so. And that is one thing that I've learned throughout my career, is that people need to feel empowered in order to propel, because especially if they're young, because young people still need managing, supporting, soundboards. Obviously, everyone might need that, but if you're entering the workplace as a junior, you're more often than not invited to the meetings, told to be doing something while something else is happening. So you need someone that's going to empower you, show you, help you, accept you, etc. And I think that I've been one of those. I've been one of those people, and a lot of the time going into spaces, even to this day, I'm still probably the youngest, probably the only Black person, or there's one other, probably the only one that kind of dresses and talks the way I do. Like, or there's one person in that room who's probably the ruler of the room, who's met me in a different way space, and they're like, no, we need to have you here, so just come as you are, etc. And again, it's that encouragement. So I think that also plays a really big part into not just the success of the agency, but also the success of like me being able to do all these different things. Like, remember I said that thing about doing things fast? When I had the mentoring program idea, I literally just said to Dad, I've got this idea. I don't even have a name, but I've got this idea. Don't worry about the people. I'll get my friends to do it for free for the first one, because I just need to see if it works. And these were relationships that I had. And that's why, and these people always, they even deserve a shout out, because they just believed, like Ete Davies, Claire Harper, Ibrahim from Guap. A lot of these people I just said to them, I'm doing this thing. I'd really love you to be a part of it. And that was the very first cohort. No one got paid. It was just me trying to do something good in the industry. And then it worked. And then I continued. And now we're fortunate to be in a position where we can pay our speakers, etc., etc. But I think you also need people like that can just say yes.
Believe in you.
Exactly. And believe in the ideas. And they're like, all right, cool. Yeah. What do you need? I'm like, great. So, and those people are like, they're big names for our industry. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're not small, like they're big names for our industry. So once again, people that people want access to or should have access to, but just probably don't even know how to even start. And I think that's another thing in our industry that we don't talk a lot about, is like, where do you even find the access points? So I think for me, I've been fortunate enough to be able to have people believe in the things that I want to create or do.
Everything that you have done, stuff you mentioned, stuff you haven't mentioned, i.e. like the race disparity group, advisory group, for example, the cabinet, or even the other programs you've gone on to create, or the clients you've worked with. What are you most proud of?
Oh, I don't know. Someone's asked me this before. I don't know. Honestly, I'm very, very, very proud of our program. Because when I think about it, it was just this little idea in my head. And then when I put it on paper, to then what it's become to this day, like people like literally talk about it like, this changed my life. So to be able to have done that is very, very like, wow. Like, even every time we go again, I'm just like, wow. Like, I remember meeting Trevor Nelson because he spoke at our third year celebration, and I remember him telling him the story of it, and he was just like, you're a bit like me. I'm like, imagine being compared to Trevor. Like, shout out you. Like, do you know what I mean? And I think I think it's just, yeah, I think it's just having people like that see as well, that you've looked up to throughout your childhood and career, and them say, this is amazing, like keep doing what you're doing, because this here is something I'll be involved in any day, anytime. And I think those are the moments where I'm like, yeah, I and I kid you not, like after the show, he called me, like he'd done his radio show, and he was just like, what you've done is amazing. Like I've never spoken to a room like that and felt that for what we're doing. And I was just like, that's so sick. So stuff like that really, really, really resonates with me and makes me really proud. I'm really proud of some of our campaigns, like our John Boyega campaign with Converse, like those young filmmakers that we put on and that we helped grow, support, fund. Like a lot of that was career changing for them. And I think that was one of our biggest projects. So it was even like a really big game changer for us. Yeah, there's so many different ones. And I don't really talk about being at the cabinet, just because I have a really complex relationship with our government. But even that, the special advisor to the Prime Minister at the time found me on LinkedIn. I don't know how, why, what. But when I got that invitation to number 10, I was like, huh? Like, how did you find me? Like, I was literally like, how did you find me? And he told me that someone told him to look at my profile. And just like moments like that, I'm just like, okay, I'm doing something right, because but yeah, so I think, yeah, those kind of moments, I think it's more moments that I'm just like, wow, like I did that, I really did that.
How do you stay true to you? Because one of the people was talk about everyone has a secret sauce. And for me, listening to your journey so far, I would say authenticity seems to be the key. People naturally gravitate to people who are just real, who are down, who are authentic, who are who they are, and not trying to pretend to be anything else. And that's something that I can definitely say is a testament to your journey. But that's also one of the hardest things to be able to do, especially in your industry, an industry you operate in. The being fake is like, man, you know already that it happens quite a lot. Or people show up in a way where they think other people need them to show up. So how do you stay true to who you are and hold on to that and use it as a badge of honor to connect with people and to build and create amazing things?
I don't know how not to be me. So it's just a case of it just, you know, that thing like I mentioned earlier about being unhappy or being stressed, I won't be able to deliver. It's kind of like that. Like if I'm not me, the person I believe I am, then I just can't do it. And I think like it's just so important to sort of like live life humbly, I believe. And I think, and by humbly, I don't mean no, like you like can't big yourself up and stuff like that. But I just mean as in like, who's it for? Like, if I was gonna be like sort of like fake or emulate or, you know, not just be myself or constantly code switch or not be true to what I don't know who it would be for. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like right now I do everything for me and in the service of others. So it's really hard to not be me for me. Do you know what I mean? And I think I've been, again, fortunate to be surrounded by so many inspiring, incredible individuals. Like my circle of friends are top tier. So in my head, I'm just like, there's still work to be done. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's not that it's a competition, but it's just that it's like there's so many of us doing so many incredible things. Do you know what I mean? It's like So it's just like no one deserves more than another. It's just we're all just doing the work that we know to be true to ourselves and to others, and to continue to try and make that impact. And I think for me, that's really important. Like, I'm not even done yet. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm nowhere near where I really see my life, and I have this vision for my life. And I feel like in order to have that vision and know it, I've got to continue to remain humble and just continue working. That's how I see it.
So before I ask you what will come next, I'm curious. In the journey that you've had so far, have you had much failure? And if so, what would you describe as your favorite failure that you've learned so much from?
Favorite failure. That's a good one. Yeah, definitely. I think I remember, and again back in the day, but I was introduced to the idea of London quite early. So I remember MTV used to do these like internships and placements. I think I had to have applied like 15 times, and I never got that one. And I just constantly thought, like, is it just like, what's wrong? Like, am I just not good enough? Like, why am I never getting it? And then even things that like I've wanted to start and I've just not got around to starting, or I've had to stop. So like I mentioned, I had Girls Let's Talk. That was due to just capacity. I just didn't have the capacity to continue. And for me, I looked at that as like a failure. It wasn't a failure when I think about it now. It's just, a new direction. But, that ended, I believe, prematurely. Even though I had done it for like 4 or 5 years. And when I think about where the industry is and where platforms are right today, it constantly makes me think, wow, had I just continued, like, who would have known? Because I feel like I was ahead of my time at the time. I mean, down to just the other day, and I'm talking about rejection more than failure, but I used to lecture at Kingston for 2 years, and I really enjoyed being a lecturer. I enjoy education. I enjoy teaching. And I saw a role as a new guest lecturer, but this one was at UAL. And I didn't get it. And I was just like, how? I literally in my head was like, how? I even know people there, and I messaged them and they were like, oh my gosh, it would be great to have you. Like, but I didn't get it. And then again, I just had to think, you know what? Maybe it's just not right now. It's a new direction. Maybe it's a new, I don't know. But I was really sad, because that for me would have been a new phase of new learning, like a new commitment, but it would have been something I would have been really proud to have been able to achieve and say. But that wasn't the case. And I've learned to just accept those things now. Like when things don't happen for me, or if I haven't done, I've learned to just be like, you know what, that's all right. Maybe it's not for me right now. That's okay. Like, and I think, like, for example, the charity, the charity that I work with is called CC Foundation, based in South London, founded by UK rapper Fecky. And the work they've done is incredible. If anyone's been following their journey, it's insane. And I've been following them for about 3.5 years. But I just never, I don't know why I never hit them up, I just didn't. And in my head, I thought, you know what? One day I'm going to work with these guys. That's what I just thought in my head. And then this year, literally just like the past couple months, I started working with them. And now Becky, that's my OG. But it just makes me think, again, it's just all about timing. Because really and truly, for the things that haven't worked out for me, or for the things I've been rejected for, timing probably wasn't right. I probably wasn't ready. Like, I don't really look at it now as like, oh, you know, I just didn't get that. Why didn't I get that? Oh my gosh, Forbes. I got Forbes last year. And if anyone knows the Forbes selection process or how it goes, it's by nomination or self-nomination. Now, I self-nominated twice. The first time I didn't get it, but I got shortlisted. And then when it got announced, I went on the list and I was deflated. Oh my gosh. I was literally like, how did this happen? But then the next year I got it. And when I got it with my boys. And I felt like that was just perfect timing. Like, we were all on the list. So I just look at things now like just a redirection. And there's definitely been things we've lost pitches that we've put our heart and soul into. Like, and things like that. We've lost money. I've taken pay cuts. Like, and no one really sees that part of the business or the journey or that hustle. Like, I've just mentioned that I bought my place, but 5-6 years ago, I used to live in, oh my gosh, it was the trenches. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like it's also like sacrifices. And I don't necessarily, again, I know you asked about failures, but for me, I kind of see them all as one. Like, they're all positions that I just would never have wished to be in. So whether it be failing at something, whether it be rejected by something, whether it be taking a sacrifice, it's something I didn't wish to do, but I know there's a next step or a next phase. And I think it's all those things that I've had to sort of work through. And now I've just sort of learned that that's just how it is. So I don't really have a favourite one, but there's definitely at points where I'm like, okay, I remember that. And some of those examples are good ones that I remember.
I think I love what you just said there around there are people don't see the challenges, the struggles, the failures, the loss of money, the loss of contracts, all of that kind of stuff. All people generally see is just the wins. And that's the shiny stuff. But the behind the scenes part is what's really tough, especially as a co-founder of an organization. It has an impact on you both like personally and professionally when things don't work out well. Whereas other people can just pick up and go. The responsibility does lie with you. So I can so resonate with that. I'm curious, what is next? What's the new what's the new thing that you're thinking about? What's bubbling up for you that you can share that you're thinking about?
What is next? It's a good question. I've been asking myself that a lot lately. Well, I really want to do more of this charity work. And again, anyone listening to this, I hope you go and see CC Foundation and look what they're doing. But I'm hoping to be a part of the next big thing for them, for sure. So they're at a phase now where they're like ready to take it to the next level. And I want to be a really big part of that. So that for me is important. Work will continue. And we really want to scale. Scaling looks different in many ways, whether it be people, whether it be work. But if we had to prioritize, it would 100% be the work. Because I think when people see the work, it enables us to get more people. And I think that's really important. And probably just diving a bit more into motherhood. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm trying to be the coolest mom out there. So, so I'm hoping that those two things also allow me the freedom, some sort, to be able to just like take time to just sort of pour more into baby. So, yeah.
What does being the coolest mom out there look like?
I don't know. Like, honestly, I'm still figuring that out. But like, you know, I don't know, like, I used to live in Amsterdam. I love Amsterdam. And when I moved there, I'm like, yeah, Amsterdam's a goal. So I don't know, maybe just raising a bilingual baby who travels a lot and who can take time to sort of just do really cool and fun stuff that I probably didn't get to do as a baby or as a child. And giving him the opportunity to do so. And I don't know what that looks like, but I definitely know that I'll spend a lot of time in Europe as well as here in the UK. And I want to be able to do that frequently. Yeah. Yeah.
So my last question for you then would be, how do you define leadership?
How do I define leadership? Over the years, I've listened to people speak and read things, been a part of things, and I've kind of taken pieces of advice from different people to sort of formulate my own sort of understanding of what it means to be a leader. And for me, firstly, I don't think leadership looks or comes in any particular way. I think a lot of the time people think that leaders are old or at the top of the business, i.e. the C-suites. But actually, I think you can lead from where you are, but you just have to be willing to understand what comes with that. So sometimes it comes with not getting credit. Sometimes it comes with listening more and talking less. Sometimes it comes with leading and being assertive. So putting your emotions and things aside. And I think that sometimes when I think about leadership, even some of those things I'm still working on, but when I think about leadership, that's what I think of, like the things that you have to do in order to lead, rather than leadership as one word in itself. And sometimes you also have to let other people lead in order to learn more to then lead again. So for me, I'm a big fan of quotes, yeah. And I've already quoted Maya Angelou, but I'd quote her again because I think she's like the top G. But she has a quote that says, why learn if you have no intention to teach? And I really believe that. And I kind of reword it a bit, but I really believe that. And I think leadership is also a big part of that. In order to be a great leader, you have to also be willing to learn. So that you cannot think you know it all or have everything sorted. So I think leadership kind of formulates a lot of different things or encapsulates a lot of different things to me. And I think a lot of those, what I just mentioned, are a big part of being a leader or becoming a leader, I should say. So yeah.
No surprise to see you doing what you do now when I listen to your journey. And I think it's amazing to hear people who have just stayed true to who they are. And in that truthfulness, for one of them, are winning. But not only just winning personally, but in your winning, you're making such a massive difference to people's lives. I know so many people. That's why I said to her at the start, I don't know how we've ever met. I know so many people told me about, like, you need to do Shanice. You speak to Shanice. She's doing this, she's doing that. And well, it's the impact. It's the impact of stuff that you're creating based on what you're seeing to then do something about it, which other people are feeling and then they're talking about. That's why it's not surprised you get invited to like down the street, or it's not surprised that you're getting involved in so many different activities that you are about, because you're always consistently like, okay, I see something, I want to get involved, I want to fix it, I want to help. How can I do that? Rather than just pondering or over analyzing, you're willing to get involved, you're willing to get stuck in, you're willing to make a mistake, but it's all in the service of just helping to create and bring change to the lives of people around you. And that for me is such a powerful way to live. And your life is a powerful testimony of what that actually looks like when you show up and you do that. So thank you very much for coming on today, just sharing some of your story. It's been dope.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I hope that someone listens to this and feels inspired.
I have no doubt there will be for sure. This is Everyday Leadership. We will see you all next week.